Welcome back. We saw an historic moment this week on the Korean Peninsula. But for all of the images of the leaders of North and South Korea smiling and shaking hands, many experts do remain skeptical about how close we really are to an official end to the Korean War, and more importantly, a denuclearized North Korea. Much will depend on President Trump and his planned meeting with Kim Jong-un. Last night at his rally, Mr. Trump left no doubt who was responsible for the progress, in his view, so far.
They were saying, what do you think President Trump had to do with it? I'll tell you what. Like, how about everything?
Joining me now is a member of the Intelligence Committee, Republican Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri. Senator Blunt, welcome back to Meet the Press. Well, let me start with very quickly. Is the president responsible for everything we've seen here so far between the two Koreas?
You know, actually, I think the president's responsible for a lot of it. He's a different personality, clearly, than the presidents who have tried to deal with North Korea before. Mm-hmm. You've really got four people here that are principal, that are in many ways different. The president, President Moon, Kim himself, the unbelievably almost empowered leader of China.
Right.
All of the dynamics between them going to be really important in whether we can get to a conclusion here or not. I will say for the last couple of years, including that would be the last 6 months of the Obama administration, North Korea has clearly been one of the principal intel committee topics to try to figure out what they were doing and how they were doing it.
And that's what I'm curious about here. Why do you believe Kim Jong-un is so comfortable coming to the table right now, right? I mean, that to me, we have to answer that question. We have to know the answer to that question before the president sits down with him, don't we?
Well, he is incredibly confident. You can tell that. He is very confident of his own ability to drive media. Now, you view that all in the context that he is truly a tyrannical dictator. Don't let that...
You didn't believe he was a rational actor. I mean, how do you trust dealing with this guy? All of a sudden, the president's like, I can handle this. Are you comfortable that Kim Jong-un is a rational actor?
You know, I think what I have tried to say in the past, he's impetuous. He's not very old. He hasn't been exposed to much of the world. And that's a very scary combination to somebody who is testing nuclear weapons.
Where would you put yourself here? There is some skeptics here. Look, Kim Jong-un's grandfather got Bill Clinton, and some would say snookered him. Kim Jong-un's father, some would say snookered George W. Bush. How concerned are you that this is just another game that Kim Jong-un, I think Brett Stevens wrote, he's got a peace wall, peace bridge to sell you type of thing? Do you think there's how much skeptical?
Well, I think we need to be very skeptical. And in 2012, the Obama administration also, we've got a series here of our leaders trying to deal with these tyrants and not having very good success in doing that. They will not be truthful just because they want to be truthful. I think there has to be some determination that the verification is absolute, that the North Koreans walk away with something out of this. And frankly, everybody, including the Chinese, has to keep the economic pressure on.
Is there a commitment that Kim Jong-un is going to ask for that you fear the president, that you would tell the president, don't give on this, please don't give on this? What would this be in your mind?
Well, I think our presence in South Korea
that's the last thing
continues to be essential, and we have to be thoughtful about that. And also I was interested that Kim, for the first time publicly, was willing to admit that his country is not everything it should be, talking to the South Koreans about their infrastructure.
But he didn't televise any of these meetings to his own people. Does that concern you that this is a media event for us and he's not selling his people on
it? I don't know that it was televised, but it was actively covered immediately in the newspapers in North Korea, which would have been different than the past. So he is out there saying, we are behind you, and many are economically behind you, our infrastructure is behind you. Everybody knows they can barely feed their country, and you know, they don't have money, that they don't have currency the rest of the world accepts, and so it's a critical time for him. But I think we have to be very skeptical. This is very much whatever they say. I'm not sure you can trust it, but you certainly have to verify it.
And we sort of have to figure out how to verify it. Let me ask you about another nuclear issue, and that is the Iran deal. The defense secretary testified on Capitol Hill this week and gave A very interesting answer about his views on the Iran deal. Here it is. I'm curious what you think.
I've read it now 3 times, all 156 pages or whatever it is, and I will say that it is written almost with an assumption that Iran would try to cheat. So the verification, what is in there, is actually pretty robust.
Now, Secretary Mattis is being careful, perhaps not to say telling what the president to stay in or out, but he's making a case for staying in. Does that interpretation give you more confidence in the Iran deal?
You know, if we stay in, I would be very much where President Macron, Prime Minister Macron was, where he said, we want to stay in the deal, but here are the 3 things that absolutely have to change. It was one of the more interesting, we're definitely in the deal, but here are the 3 things that have to change.
So that gave you some confidence.
Well, it's actually the 3 things the president has been saying need to change in the deal as well. And also remember, Iran is a bad actor in lots of areas, and the Iran deal doesn't cover all their bad activities. We can do sanctions on Iran even if you stay in the Iran deal that doesn't relate to nuclear. Iran is very dangerous, and they are on a certain path to have nuclear weapons capability in 10 years unless the government would, in a very unlikely way, change its view of itself and the world.
You know, sometimes it's weird how we're treating Kim Jong-un versus how we treat the Iranians. Kim Jong-un essentially murdered an American citizen in Otto Warmbier. It's very possible the way he was treated over there. He was essentially murdered.
Plus probably his own brother and his uncle.
Murdered other people. He has starved his own people. The Iranians don't starve their own people. It is, you know, and yet we're sort of now feeling comfortable cozying up with Kim Jong-un and demonizing the Iranians. It just feels like we're sending some odd messages around the world.
Well, I don't know, Chuck. I think you want to be sure you learn the lesson of North Korea, which is don't let countries that have bad inclinations all over the world wind up with nuclear weapons. We are with Iran right now where we would have been with North Korea 15 years ago, and it's foolish to let Iran become another North Korea. And we're not dealing with Kim Jong-un because we think he's a good guy.
A couple of quick political questions. The Mueller protection bill went through the Judiciary Committee. If it hits the Senate floor, are you inclined to support it?
No.
Right now, under no circumstances.
Under no circumstances.
All right. And
now also, and I've given lots of public advice on this to the White House, that they would be foolish not to let Mueller complete this investigation.
Gotcha.
But I think there's a serious question here about how much the legislative branch can manage the executive branch. And if we want to have our own investigator, we could create a law that does that, but we've chosen not to do that.
And I got to ask you about your home state governor, Eric Greitens. Most Republicans in the state seem to want him to resign. Is his presence going to negatively impact Republicans on the ballot in 2018 in Missouri?
I think we have to let the situation play out. You know, obviously what the governor's accused of is very concerning, but there's both a legal process and a legislative process designed to deal with that. And I have confidence that both of those will reach the proper
You don't think
conclusion.
he should resign yet?
I don't think it's my job to decide whether he should resign yet or not. But I think he should have.
Is it in the best interest of the state of Missouri for him staying in there right now?
Voters voted for him. There are 2 ways to deal with these issues. One is the legal process going on. The other is the legislative process. There's no reason not to have confidence in both of those.
You seem to be very hesitant to call for. You're about the only Republican hesitant to call for his resignation.
Well, I think when you reach conclusions without allowing people to be fully heard, that's not a good thing. And you know, the governor ran on the basis that he had a lot to say about everybody, bad about everybody in politics, but he did get elected. And there is a way to deal with these issues that I think is more appropriate than a bunch of politicians saying what ought to happen.
Senator Roy Blunt, Republican from Missouri. As always, sir, thanks for coming, sharing your views. Appreciate it. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.